Ike's bio is back here just to point out a little bit in terms of what Ike has done. As you all know, those of you especially from Philadelphia, he is a beloved member of our community. Was a standout linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, and played at Michigan State as well. Was drafted by Eagles in the 5th round of the 1998 NFL Draft. Again, I won't read through it. He is obviously now working at WIP and 94.1 FM, 610 AM. I know we all enjoy listening to him. As far as Garry is concerned, I think you also know some of his background too, and just a little bit of information on him. He played also in the NFL for the Eagles 3 years and some other teams. I don't know whether we should mention them. Should we mention those? Well, Dallas, as well, Dallas, 2 years in Dallas, right? 6 years for the Detroit Lions, according to the information we have. Is also a sports radio talk show, 610 WIP, and did that for a while there. Sports anchor and reporter for CBS 3 in Philly for 8 years. Some of the things you may not know, he played baseball, apparently, right, NCAA at USC for a couple years, and has just written his first book, Don't Be Clueless, right, for teen adults, putting together a game plan for life. There are many other things I can mention. Both of these gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us, and please welcome them. If you want to come up and stand.
Yeah, I will. I feel
great.
A lot of people want to come and stand. Talking. Although I sit to talk at work on the radio, I'll go before G. Let me just say, G, I'm surprised. I didn't know you played baseball, brother. Wow. Things you learn.
We had a crack researcher.
Well, just say thank you, first of all, for having both of us here and having myself here. I feel honored and privileged to have the opportunity to share just my life experiences and what sports has meant to me my entire life and what it still means to me to this day. I explain to my kids, as little as they may understand, 8 and 6 years old, the importance of sports. I really do. You know, in today's age of video games, Xboxes, Wii's, PlayStations, all those things, that's all that most kids want to do. They want to be in front of the television playing video games on a computer. And we just don't have as many kids out in the community, you know, getting each other together to play sports, whether it's basketball, whether it's a baseball game, whether it's football on the weekends. We just don't do that as much as we did when I was growing up. And I grew up under a single parent, a mom, 4 other brothers. Didn't have much growing up, but she did the best she could to get us, to raise us. And but sports was our great escape. You know, I grew up in the inner city, just sitting there listening. I forgot the gentleman's name that was up there talking about tennis, but listening to him talk about tennis and so many factors that go into the reason why he's trying to establish that foundation and that outlet for so many other kids. Tennis is sort of outwardly sort of a sport that's not played as much in the inner city where I grew up. Just athletics, period, I think is the great escape. Whether it be basketball, football, baseball, hockey, what have you. And that was the great escape for me and my 4 brothers. I mean, that's what we did. You know, we found a way, whether it be after school, whether it be on the weekends, to get together and challenge other kids in different neighborhoods, get together with other kids in our neighborhoods, to go to other neighborhoods and play. I mean, sports meant the world to us growing up in the 80s and in the 90s. And I am the only child out of my brothers that was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to college, earn my degree in communications at Michigan State. But it wasn't an easy road. I was not the most talented player in our high school area, in our city. As a matter of fact, I played 1 year in high school, just my junior year in high school. I dropped out in the 10th grade because I thought I had it all figured out and knew what I wanted to do with my life and wanted to be one of the cool kids. Skipped school and did all the other things that you weren't supposed to do behind your parents' back. And eventually dropped out of school and, you know, got my girlfriend pregnant and was about to become a dad at 17, 18 years old. And I knew at that point there regardless of what I was going to do with the rest of my life, I wanted my child that was be coming into this world to have a father that he can be proud of. You know, so I wanted to go back to high school, get my high school diploma, and then hopefully find a trade that I could be able to earn a living to be able to take care of my newborn that was coming. And it just so happened, it was God's will that, you know, the year that I played, you know, one of the games that I had a pretty good game in, the coach of Michigan State was there to recruit a kid from the other school. And I just happened to have one of my better games that game, and I caught his eye. And they offered me the scholarship that following year, even though I knew I wouldn't be eligible to play because it was my 5th year in high school, and they took a chance on me. And I went to Michigan State not knowing what I was going to do in my life, but knowing that I had a great opportunity to become something in my life. And eventually, through being at Michigan State, I began to take my academics serious. I got somewhat of a clue as to what I wanted to do. I developed a personality. I should say I discovered I had a personality that people would somewhat warm up to. And I enjoyed being in front of a camera. I enjoyed talking. I've always enjoyed sports. That's just something me and my brothers did. We argued about sports. Who was the best? Was it Magic? Was it Jordan? Was it Bird? I mean, those are things that we did growing up. So arguing sports and having a passion for sports is something that I always had. It took time for my talent and my ability to catch up with the love that I had for sports. And I was a late bloomer even at Michigan State University. By the time I left there, not only did I have my degree in communications, but I was an All-American, I was an All-Conference player, I was the MVP of the team by the time I left, and I had a shot at playing in the National Football League. Can you believe that? Are you kidding me? That's what I said to myself when agents were calling me and telling me that I had a chance to play in the National Football League. Something that I dreamed about doing from age 8, 9, 10 years old. You know, never really thinking that I would have that, but as kids, that's what we do. We dream the impossible. We dream the impossible. It's a fantasy world. Growing up in the inner city that I grew in, the household that I grew in, drug infested, violence, all those things you read about in the papers, that was just my great escape. I can imagine myself playing for the Cincinnati Bengals one day, which is where I'm from. Believe me, you had to be from Cincinnati to be a Bengals fan. That's where I grew up, as a Bengals fan. And hoping, or dreaming, fantasizing, romancing one day that I would play in the National Football League. And by the time I got through my years in college, I was right on the cusp of achieving that dream. But during the time I was there, I just wasn't like, you know, a lot of the athletes that you may read about. We go to school just for athletics. You know, we used to have a coach there, George Purvis, who recruited me. And if a guy, you know, had a scheduling conflict, and he either had to get a tutor or he had a class that started late, it was going to cause him to miss practice or whatever, but the coach, tongue-in-cheek, would stand up there and say, what do you think we gave you that scholarship for? You're here to play football. Ooh, second. And some guys bought into it, but not me, because again, I'm living a dream, and I'm thinking to myself, all good things come to an end. This is not going to end the way I expected to, meaning playing in the National Football League, having a long career. So I wanted to do something that I knew I would still have a love for, and it would be attached to sports. I took up communications. I got into telecommunications, and I learned how to be a better interviewer. Watching guys on Sundays, pre-game, post-game shows, all those things. I was a fan of those guys as much as I was of the games, and I knew what I wanted to do when I was finished playing. Whenever it was time for me to hang up the cleats, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that involved reporting and talking about athletics, professional sports, college sports. And so I got my degree in communications. And I was going to be prepared whenever my career ended in the NFL, if I was fortunate enough to be drafted, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, however long it may be. I was fortunate enough to be drafted here in Philadelphia from Ray Rhodes. Terrible team early in my career. Coach gets fired, Andy Reid comes in, and we take off as an organization. And as a player, I got better. I got better as a player. And I started to discover how much sports meant in the city of Philadelphia. You know, it wasn't until after we lost 1 or 2 of those conference championship games and I actually listened in to WIP. You could just hear it coming through the airways. You could just hear it. And instead of being turned off by it, or offended by it, or beaten by it, I sort of understood it. You know, there was a connection there, because I felt the same way about sports as these fans felt about sports in this town. And that began my love for sports talk radio. But during my time in the NFL, I wanted to prolong my career as long as I could. So what I had to do was adjust my game. I'm coming from Michigan State, where I was all conference, two-time captain at the school, All-American, and I'm used to playing on every down. I'm used to being the guy out there. But in the NFL, as Garry will tell you, everyone's the guy. Everyone's the best player on their team in college that plays in the National Football League. So I had to readjust my way of thinking. I had to come up with a new game plan as to how I was going to maintain a career in this awesome league amongst the best in the league. And that's where I had a talk with our late defensive coordinator, Jim Johnson. And he told me that you have the ability to play in this league. We just don't know if you can play on an every down basis. But don't be discouraged by that. You can find a niche. You can find a role on this team on defense, as well as being a great special teams player. Those things are important as well. And that's what I set my mind to be, the best special teams player in the National Football League. And 2 or 3 years later, that's what I became, the best in the National Football League. And along that time, I did things that would allow the fans in this town to remember who I was as a player and as a person. So when I spoke about the team during our adverse times, during the times where we had big victories like the 4th and 26th play of Freddie Mitchell against the Green Bay Packers, I tried to make sure I connected with this fan base. You know, that was my plan. When some guys didn't want to talk to the media, when some guys wanted to give short answers, I wanted to elaborate. I wanted to give the people what they wanted to know. What was wrong with their team? How did they win? Why did they win? Why did we lose? How did we lose? And that was my whole plan. Also, during the off season, instead of going to some lavish vacation home in Miami or somewhere else, I stayed right here in this city. I did community service. I spoke in schools. I spoke to youth leagues, basketball, football, baseball. I also did an internship here at Comcast for 2 years during the off season. When I sat back, I took notes. I learned how production meetings went. I learned how to write scripts for shows, the news, all those things. Now, G'll tell you, you may see a lot of guys that after their profession is over in sports, they go into the booth. A lot of those guys have big names. Guys like myself, who aren't a starter or a household name, you got to work a little harder. And I knew that. And that's what I set out to do. And by the time I was done playing, when I left here to go to Atlanta, I never gave that dream up of mine of continuing my life in sports. That's just how much sports has meant to me. It helped me leave the inner city, the ghetto of Cincinnati. It helped me get my college degree at Michigan State University. It helped me meet my wife at Michigan State University. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary 2 weeks ago. Sports has been a big part of my life. And it has, and it will continue to be. I'm making it a big part of my kids' lives. You know, sports is also a tool I use as a parent to communicate with my kids. You know, we have a hard time relating with the youth of America and trying to be, the hip dad and all those things. Well, I struggle with all those things. But I know through sports, there's messages through sports, the coaching that I receive, the values about life, about teamwork, about sacrifice, about persevering. All these things I've learned from great coaches, from George Purvis to Nick Saban, to Jim Moore Jr., to Hank Buller, to Andy Reid. And the list goes on and on. I've had an opportunity to play for some great men. I really have. They've had a very big impact on my life as a human being and as a man. And a lot of those principles and values that they instilled in me, I'm using those same principles and values to walk through my everyday life, to be be the man that I am today, to be the father that I am, to be the husband I am. Those are things that I'm using. And it all came from sports. Not that you can't get it from other endeavors in life and other avenues in life, but I know what was number one to me growing up and what's still number one to me. And that's athletics and that's sports and that's everything that it encompasses. And when I decided to retire, I wanted to be here. I wanted to work in the greatest sports city in America, in my opinion, with the best fans in the world. What other place to work that cares about, what other place to be than in a city that cares as passionately about their sports teams than being here in Philadelphia. And this is where I continue to raise my kids and live as I work on 94 WIP, formerly 610. This is my 5th year. This will be my 5th year this June that I've been at the station. And I plan on doing it until people stop listening. They get tired of listening to us. I try to cram everything in there as fast as I could. As you can tell, I get a little long-winded sometimes, just talking. But thanks again for having me here and giving me a little bit of your time, just to let you know how much sports means to me and how it's been a big impact on my life. Thank you. Gets done.
Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Good. I enjoyed listening to Ike talk about his story because it's really fascinating how people matriculate to different industries and get involved in different things. Similarly to some of the things with Ike, sports has always been a big part of my life. Really, one of the most memorable, really impactful experiences happened to me when I was 7 years old. I was a little guy. I was born down in North Carolina. We had 7 kids in our family, and they used to call me Eat 'em Up. I was a little guy, and I was big for my age, but I used to eat, and it was the kind where they couldn't button my pants, because I was putting everything in. I would eat. Like after I ate, I'd go around and check everybody's plate. Anything left? What you call one of those, I was a forerunner of the garbage disposal. But, but I really did like to eat them, so they called me Eat 'em Up. But we moved north. We moved to Connecticut when I was 6 years old. And my older brother joined the Little League. And I used to look at those guys on TV. And he had a uniform. It said, it was one of those white uniforms that said fire department. Fire and then abbreviation department on the bottom. But my sister Teresa, who's a year older than me, and we went to see our older brother James. Now James was 4 years older than I was and 3 years older than Teresa. And we went to see him play in the Little League. And I remember it just like it was yesterday because I came up, I was behind the backstop, and I had my face right up against the screen and my fingers in the fence because I was looking at the ball come in when the guys would come up to the plate. And see, in the South, we didn't have anything like this. And I couldn't believe it. Here you got little kids with their own uniform, just like the guys on TV. Couldn't believe it. And my older brother had his own uniform. And when we were young, we were kind of on the poor side. As I look back, I didn't realize that then, because we had such a big family, and my father was just trying to find work. That's why we moved north. There wasn't really work in the South, and so he moved north. And my dad had gone back to school when he was after he'd gotten out of the service, because he realized something when he went to the Army, that the only guys that they promoted were the guys that had a high school diploma. And my father had an 8th grade diploma. He didn't, 8th grade, he's going to 8th grade. They don't give out diplomas. But he and my mom, but in the South, they really didn't think a lot of education. In fact, my grandfather used to say, boy, Jesse, you got enough education. But anyway, he saw that that you could benefit from getting more education. So when he got out of the service, he went back to school. He drove the bus, and my older brother rode on the bus. He was in like 2nd grade or something. And my father drove the bus. He went back to school, eventually got his high school diploma. And that was a major thing in my life because my dad said, you know, I can see what education is doing for me, giving them opportunity to eventually got a job as a postal worker. But he vowed that all of us were going to go to college. And that really had a lot to do with different things in my life. He made that decision. But we moved north. And my brother, as I said, he joined the Little League. And he played for the fire department. And he was a left-handed hitter. And this was a Saturday. And like I said, I can remember it just like it was yesterday. He was playing at first base, and he was a left-handed hitting first baseman. And he came up in the first inning, and I remember the first pitch was like high and outside, and then the guy threw a strike, but the next 3 pitches were low, and one was outside, and he walked and went to first base. But in the 3rd inning, he came up, and the guy threw a fastball right down the middle. Now, I didn't know it was a fastball then, but he threw it hard as could be, and it was coming right down the middle, and my brother hit it, and it was a low line drive, and it started heading out to right field. It was kind of going low, then it started getting some height on it, and it went over the red picket fence out in right field. And when that ball headed out there, I headed down the right field line. My sister was yelling behind me, "Garry, come back, come back." I started running, I got that ball, I came back, and I said, "My brother hit a home run, my brother hit a home run." And my sister was saying, "Shut up, Garry, shut up." And everybody's looking at us. "My brother hit a home run, my brother hit a home run." Because, see, something went off in me when he hit that home run. Because he drank the same sugar water that I used to drink, ate the same mayonnaise sandwiches sometimes, and ketchup sandwiches, and he had the same parents. And when he hit that home run, I started believing I could hit a home run, that I could play sports. And that's when the light went on me and I started playing sports. And I started realizing, I didn't realize I was a good athlete. So some things came naturally, and I started playing baseball. That was my first sport. Man, I love baseball. I used to sleep with my glove, have the bat. We didn't have air conditioning, but in the summer you'd be trying to get some air to just blow through there a little bit, keep all the windows open, and we're looking at the game, and we look at all the guys. I knew where everybody bat, all their stances, Some guys came up different ways, and we knew their stance and their batting average and all their stats. And then there was a store on the corner called Maz's, and we used to go there and we'd read through all of the books to see everything about the sports, read all the papers, and don't buy anything and put everything back. And in fact, the guy I eventually went to the pros. The guy that owned the place said, you owe me some of your bonus. But I love sports. And my dad, he loved sports too. He wasn't able to play as much, but he kind of lived through it vicariously through us. And I really followed my older brother because he was a good athlete, and he went on and he played in high school. I was into every game he played, and then I followed him. I had a little brother followed me, and we all played sports. We had a lot of success. All of us wound up going to college, and we benefited from it and everything. And so sports was one of the things that was an anchor in my life. And fortunately, there were some other things too. My dad, my mom, they were Christians, and when we were growing up, when I was at home, I was going like, they're cramping my style. I really want to get away from my pops because certain things you weren't doing around the house, Pops wanted to make sure that we didn't get in trouble. So he tried to make sure that, when it got dark, he wanted you to come home. And he believed in some of those scriptures like, spare the rod and spoil the child. That type of stuff. Pops would take his belt off, and you didn't want him to do that because it was bad stuff. Because he would pop your legs and stuff. But anyway, there were rules and there were different things that we had to do, and like I said, there were a lot of restriction and different things that I wanted to do. I wanted to hang out, have me some girlfriends, and get busy. Everybody, guys were talking about like they were having sex and different things, and I wanted some freedom, and I wanted to get away from my pop. So I was growing up in Connecticut, and I went to school in Los Angeles at the University of Southern California. I got recruited out there. I was a good player. I played football, baseball, and basketball in high school, but my two big sports were football and baseball. And USC recruited me in both of them. And they had a great program in football and baseball, so I went out there, and I was away from my father. But when I got out there, certain things started happening. I go and I talk to a lot of kids in a place called the Youth Study Center, which is in Philadelphia. Now it's up on Henry Street. It used to be over on the Parkway. And when kids get arrested here in Philadelphia, they take them to the Youth Study Center. And so I get a chance to talk to them, and I always talk to them about the fact that the older I got, the smarter my father got. And I asked them, I said, now, do you really think my father got smarter? They go, yeah, he must have got smarter. I said, nah. My father didn't get smarter. See, I got smarter and started finding out what was going on. And a lot of the things that they had told us about having a relationship with the Lord, I can't say how important it is that you realize how much God cares about you, how much God loves you, that it's the essence. You think it's that being a big, strong athlete, that it's something that you don't need. You can make it, you'll be fine without it. And I see so many guys, close to the game. And I know Ike can attest to this too. You see so many guys that they don't have that foundation in their life without having the Lord in your life, having a relationship with Him, and knowing that God cares about you, knowing that regardless of what happens, because when you go out on the field, a lot of times it's kind of funny, if you want to pray with somebody, man, you get ready to pray after you go out, before you go out on that field. Everybody's ready to pray, because you can get hurt badly. Even if you're a great player, you can get hurt very badly out on the football field. So guys are ready to pray and need something to lean on. And then the insecurity of how well you're going to play, that plays into, when you play football, and in fact all of the sports. And really all the sports here in Philadelphia have a strong Christian membership, where there are a number of guys on the team that are believers, and they have Bible studies and different things that go on around the teams. And it's really something, as I said, that sports is just, especially professional sports, it's not, there's nothing that you can really put your hat on and say, I know this is going to happen. When a game's going to be getting ready to be played, well, I know we're going to win this game, or everybody's going to stay healthy in this game. You can't say that about sports, especially football. And in football, it's not a matter of whether there are going to be injuries. It's a matter of who is going to get hurt and when they're going to get hurt and how bad it's going to be. So you don't have that security. And so during my career, and I played 11 years in the NFL, believe me, if it wasn't for the Lord, I don't know if I'd have made it. It definitely wouldn't have been as successful, because you need that stability. And I learned about how important it is to have a relationship with the Lord. The longer, like I said, when I got away from home and realized that He's the only relationship that you really can depend on. It's great being married and everything, and I find that one of the problems a lot of people have in marriage is that you can wind up where you're really just trying to get out of that other person, that you really can't depend on somebody else to fulfill you. That really you get your fulfillment from the Lord, and then you're able to be a giver and be a person that can bless your spouse, help your spouse. And really all these things, I talk about marriage, talk about relationships there. I know Ike mentioned that. All these things play into how the teams do. It's kind of fascinating, you know, that they could have a movie where they would show how when everything's going well at home, the guy's playing better on the field. When things aren't going well, you feel that tension, and you can see a couple, and you kind of know that things going on, that it's tough. And you see a guy faltering. And really, sports is a part of this whole beautiful pattern or blanket that you could say, a kind of, you see those quilts where they kind of sew all kind of things in it. That's the way sports is. That's been a part of my life, a key part of my life. And of course, as I said, my relationship with the Lord has been a big part of my life. And I could be up here talking about both of them forever because they've been so important. And sports is great and everything, but the Lord is first. And I just want to thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk. I know I've kind of jumped all over the place, but sports, when you start talking about it, I can just remember so many stories that make me laugh, and then others that would have me up here crying. But sports is really, it's like life played out. So many things that happen in sports arena where you are able to learn life lessons. Being able to be a team player, being able to get along with your teammates, realizing that it's not all about you, that it's about us, building up the other people on the team and helping them to get into a place where they can do their thing. And I'm always fascinated by great players. And I can remember, like right now with Michael Vick, I know that he's a great player, and it makes me think of a guy by the name of Michael Jordan, who could always do fantastic things on the basketball court, but he could never win a championship until he learned that my first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make all these guys that I'm playing with, make them better. And I can always take over the game, but I can make them better by getting the ball to them and putting them in a position where they can score. And then eventually, if it gets late in the game, I can take the game over. And I've always hoped that Michael Vick will get to the point where he's got that tremendous talent to be able to be that kind of facilitator and everything. But I stand, I'm in the locker room, I hear him talking, and I get to know different things going on in his life, and it's kind of fascinating knowing that he's got this walk, trying to develop his walk with the Lord in the midst of trying to be this superstar quarterback, dealing with the things that he's had, some of the mistakes he's made right out in front of everybody. And I look at him and I say, some people, you hear people saying this and saying that, and I know I've had my challenges. I've made my mistakes in life and done things that have hurt me. Some have hurt my family. It made things tougher on my kids. If I lose my temper or don't really be the kind of man I could be at all times, which all of us do. But nobody knows about that. Nobody hears about that. But when I am talking about all these guys, these players, especially like somebody like Michael Vick, of course, his stuff is all out in the open. That I know that, I try to deal with the things realizing that, hey, look, his stuff is out there, mine could very well be, and I'm not any better than he is. He came up in a different environment than I did. I always had my dad there. My mom and dad were always together, and that's something that's been a blessing to me. And so I try to think about that when I'm over at the Youth Study Center talking to a lot of those kids who, their mom and dad, neither one of them been in the house. You hear kids talk about situations where come home and mom has sold the refrigerator. There's nothing to eat. Different things like that. So there are a lot of challenges in our world, and I am really fortunate to be able to be in the sports world because they're kind of made up problems. This happened to the team, that happened to the team. It's kind of funny. I hear some of the fans say things like, man, my life has been so tough. I've been a fan of the Eagles and they haven't won a Super Bowl. And with some of the things you got going on in the city, you just go, all I can do is shake my head to that. That's really tough, man. You've never been able to have a team win a Super Bowl, but everything else is fine. But anyway, we'd love to take any questions that you might have about sports, about things about your Christian walk, anything about practice, preparation, game time, whatever you want to talk about. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Talk about the process that you had to go through in your mind, going from an All-American role at Michigan State to realizing, based on feedback you've gotten from your coaches, and accepting the fact that, okay, maybe I'm not going to have that same status within the NFL, but I'm going to be the best player and identify the role that I'm going to take and be the best at that role.
Yeah, the thing is, Gary would tell you, we as athletes, ego, in case you didn't know, can be a little bit of a problem sometimes for us. And we all have them. We all take a lot of pride in what we been given ability to do and to play at this level. I know it took a lot of hard work and sacrifice on my part during the time that I was in college to even make myself a candidate to play in the National Football League. And that took years to build up that confidence to even believe that you can play in the NFL. Be on the same field with an Emmitt Smith, or Barry Sanders, John Elway, Dan Marino, these guys. And by the time I was drafted to the Eagles, I was ready to go. Confidence was at an all-time high. And for a few years there, my first couple years, I didn't want to accept the fact that I couldn't be a starter out there. And but I also realized that kind of goes back to something that you talked about is your faith and your foundation with Christ. He teaches you to have humility and to be prideless and to be selfless. So I had to sort of reevaluate, my own self, and so you take a step back and you say, check your ego at the door, and you say, what's most important? And the most important thing is to provide means to support your family, and not only that, because the money is important, but the money is not everlasting. But to have been given an opportunity from where I came from to be in the NFL, it was like, are you kidding me? 6 years ago, if they told you to be the water boy, you wouldn't have had any problem with it. So, just to be associated with a team in the National Football League, I had to sort of check my ego at the door. And that's pretty much what I did. And you still reserve enough ego and pride so that you can survive amongst the biggest egos and the most prideful men. You can't be timid because the league will eat you up and you'll be out of it before you know it. But I just felt like that off season, I had enough time to sort of think about it, and that's when it came. Really, in my third off season is when Jim and I had that talk, and he hadn't said a whole lot to me during the time prior to that. Especially nothing I would repeat in front of you all. Just, it's Jim Johnson. He didn't hold any punches. And to have him sit down and sort of explain to me how I can have a career in the NFL if I just make some adjustments and accept a little bit of a lesser role and realize that your role can be just as impactful as far as the greater good of the team and how much success the team will have. It meant a lot to me. And I think the biggest thing is, it's one thing to have that told to you and you try to apply it or implement it and go into that year. But when you start to have the success and you start to see it come to fruition and you start to realize, well, you're just as respected amongst your peers, your teammates, as any of the starters are. They view you as a leader on the team, just like they do with Jeremiah Trotter or Brian Dawkins. That meant a whole lot to me, considering I wasn't one of the 22 starters out there offensively or defensively. And I began to embrace the role. And, like I said, it allowed me to stay in the league for 9 years, where I know a lot of guys that had a lot more talent than I had, but just wouldn't accept that role or humble themselves to be somewhat of a backup player and a team player, that their careers lasted 3-4 years. And they never really, the fruit from that sacrifice, I'm still reaping the harvest today. I'm still, because I have a job, I'm on the radio, it's a tough job to do. I can't do that job without fans wanting to hear you and liking you as a person. So, you know, like I said, you know, that advice he gave me years ago, I'm still reaping the fruit of that.
One more question.
You know, I want to say for
I didn't even ask you a question.
He had talked about, you know, the whole situation with,
I got big brother, man. I can remember.
you know, when I got out of the league, you know, I really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, but I had different people had told me that maybe I could do something in the media. So gradually I got an opportunity. Ron Jaworski was doing a show, a radio show, and for some reason he couldn't do it, so he asked me to pitch in for him, and that's the way I got started on WIP. But I see a lot of the guys now. It's a tough transition after you are in sports, and you know, I see some of the guys now who, if you ask them, let's say they played offensive tackle, if you ask them, well, how do you block a defensive end? You know, what do you look for? Where do you have to place your hands? How do you have to set when you drop your feet back? You know, how do you know when the blitz is coming? Different times, you know, they're experts, so they can tell you all of that. Different times, if I'm looking at TV, I'll say something, oh, they get ready to run a screen, and somebody goes, how did you know that? Well, you know, it took me about 3 hours to explain how I knew that. But, you know, from 11 years in the league studying, that was one of my jobs, is I got to know, what are they getting ready to run? Looking at the formation, looking at the way guys are set up. What's the down and distance? What's the personality of the offensive coordinator? What does he like to do when he gets in trouble? What happens if the offense isn't going well? Does he like to run a special play, or is it one of the guys on the team, he's going to make sure he gets the ball into the hands of his best player? These guys have different mindsets, and so that's what I had spent you know, the last decade or so doing. And when guy gets out of the game, that's where his expertise is. And so a lot of times when the guy's finished and the guy's career is over, he's been used to being looked at as someone who is admirable, someone who's been at the top of his game and everything. But after you finish playing football and your expertise was knowing when that blitz was coming and knowing how to block this guy going upfield and all that, and now you're out in the business world, and really, you're a rookie. And see, this is where the battle, this is why really so many guys get destroyed, because, you know, Ike mentioned the pride factor, which most of the time playing ball, the pride goes along with it, because when you have success, pride is one of the things you're going to have to deal with. Because you start feeling, you know, good about yourself, everybody tells you how great you are, you know, you're the answer to everything, and then you all of a sudden are thrown into something where you're becoming a businessman, let's say, in a completely different industry than you've been playing and been involved in it for the last, you know, whatever, 20 years. And so many guys end up, you know, divorce rate is really high in the NFL after guys finish playing. Guys having businesses that fall apart. And I see a couple guys that used to play doing some of the same things, like what a lot of times what guys will do, they have some money. When they get out, they'll take that money and invest in something. And one of the guys, in fact, who put a bunch of money in a business just recently, and one of the guys, that's a buddy of mine, had asked him, well, why did you put all your money into that? You know, why not go to a bank? Well, he said, I didn't want to go to a bank because then I got to listen to them. Then I've got to hear what they got to say. Even though the bank, they have expertise in running businesses. They wouldn't give that money out unless you come in there with a proper, you know, business plan, and you do all the things that are necessary to make sure that business is successful. But because this guy had the money, he goes and puts his money in there. He doesn't have the business plan, just something he wanted to do. Now, his chances of succeeding are high. I mean, you know, most businesses fail anyway. The ones that do the business plan, do everything the right way. And see, this is the kind of thing that happens to a lot of players. It's just one of the challenges. I mean, it's great to make money when you're young, but then sometimes it's not the best thing to make money when you're young, because most of the time when you're young, a lot of things you don't know. And so you're prone to make mistakes. And that's what I see a lot of times in sports, and it's one of the things that they're trying to deal with in the NFL office. In fact, Troy Vincent is trying to do different things to help guys make the transition out of sports into everyday life. And so that's one of the big things that happens with athletes. It's a challenge. I don't think there's going to be an easy answer to it, because a lot of guys go through a lot of trouble. And as I said, I think the divorce rate is like 80% with players after they finish playing, not to mention all of the different financial problems. And a lot of times it's because of that transition. And Ike and I have been very fortunate to be able to get into the media. A lot of guys wind up doing different things where they end up dealing with things where they don't have a lot of expertise in. But anyway, I just want to say that. Thank you.